In today's video, I'm going to give you the most important things to know about Japanese etiquette to smooth out your trip to Japan. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Empathetic Wanderers. My name is Jeff, and on this channel I give you ways to deepen your travel experience here in Japan, hopefully access otherwise inaccessible situations. And one of the best ways that I feel like you can do that is through language. Another good way is through just trying new foods. But one thing is really just learning the cultural customs, and in no better place is that done than in Japan, because there are a lot of rules about etiquette and customs that when you know them and if you know how to operate around them, it just smooths out your trip, and I think it just makes for a better overall experience. So if you haven't been to my channel before, welcome. If you like Japan content, if you like East Asia content, language content, and the like, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure to hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of the content I put out every single week. Today I'm going to go into just some basic things to know about Japanese culture, Japanese etiquette, and just things to smooth out your trip when you get here. So let's get to the video. So everyone is running around. There are so many people here in Tokyo, or in Japan specifically. So people are kind of just like trying to get to work, trying to do their thing. So one of the really helpful things to know that you don't get overwhelmed in like train stations and stuff like that is that everyone stands on the left-hand side of the escalator. Everyone passes on the right-hand side of the escalator. Now, for some reason, this changes when you're in Osaka or in Kyoto, I believe. So I'm not sure why that is, but if you're in Tokyo, you stand on the left-hand side and you pass on the right-hand side, and people are very, very strict about it. No one will really say anything. You might feel someone coming behind you, but just know that you should stay on the left-hand side and you can pass on the right-hand side. One of the next things is that when you're getting on the train, trains are super, super busy, as you can imagine, in Tokyo. So when you have a bag, if you have a backpack, it's always good to put the backpack on in front of you, just so that you don't bump into anyone, and so that you always have the ability to kind of like know where your space, what space you're taking up. I actually also find it's really helpful because I get to put my arms like on my backpack, and it's kind of a nice rest. So I actually quite enjoy it now, but that's just something to know. Another thing that is super helpful to know is, lines are really, really important in Japan. Being in order and everything going a certain way is very, very typical of Japan. And so no more is that true than when you are at a train station and waiting for a train. So there are usually two separate lines. They're usually color coded. It's all in Japanese, obviously, but it's quite obvious, at least it was obvious to me before I spoke Japanese, that there's a line for people that are waiting for the train that is immediately coming, so the next train that's coming, and then there's a separate area for people that want to wait for the next train. So a lot of times you'll see people waiting in that secondary line because maybe the next train that's coming after is a special express or an express, and so they're going to be waiting for that. So in this scenario that the train station is super, super busy, you could always just get into that second line if you're able to take that next train that's coming after the immediate one coming, the one coming immediately next, in order to kind of get like maybe a seat on the train or whatever. Which actually brings me to my next point. Obviously, this is like a universal thing. I think that everyone should be doing this, but just be aware when you're on the train, if there's anyone that needs to sit down, if there's someone older than you, obviously, being respectful to your elders is a really big deal in Japan, but it's just a good, nice thing to do. So just be aware if you're sitting down, watch when you get to a train station, if someone gets on the train that might need to sit down, if someone's got a stroller, or if someone's pregnant, or if there's an older person or someone with a cane or something like that, just give your seat to them. Another thing to know is that no one eats on the train. No one talks on their phone on the train. And so just it's actually a pretty quiet experience, so just be aware of that, especially if you're traveling with friends. Like, keep your voice down. A lot of people like use the train and their commute, because a lot of people commute very far into Tokyo for work. A lot of people use it as like their relaxation time. You'll see a lot of people asleep on the train. Somehow they always wake up at their station. I to this day don't know how that is possible, but they always do. But just be aware and try to be quiet and keep your voice down, and definitely like don't talk on the phone, and definitely like don't open food. Don't have any food while you're eating. I mean, while you're sitting on the train. You can have a drink and stuff like that, like a water or something, but no food. The next one is very specific to Japan and Korea. You always put your chopsticks on the bowl. You never stick your chopsticks in the bowl when you're eating ramen or stuff like that. It resembles the way that they honor ancestors at shrines and stuff like that. If you ever go to a shrine, you'll see they have incense stuck into offering. It's like an offering to your ancestors. And so just something to know, always put your chopsticks on the bowl rather than inside the bowl. And then Japan is a very rainy place. One of the things that you'll notice when you go into restaurants, cafes, convenience stores, and the like is they will either have places where you can put a plastic bag around your umbrella, or they will have an area that you can set your umbrella outside, because no one takes anything, no one steals things from people. So you can just leave your umbrella outside, no one's going to take it. Every convenience store, when it's raining, will put out this little contraption that you can stick your umbrella in. Like if you go to a Starbucks or really any coffee cafe, they're usually going to have like this little contraption that you can stick your umbrella in, and it puts a plastic bag around it so that you don't get anything wet when you're actually in the cafe. So just be aware of that, so that you don't get water anywhere. And then on top of that, the next thing would just be when you're at a cafe, or really like a lot of restaurants too, they'll have these baskets that you can put your backpack in. So they don't really want you, it's a nice thing for you and it's a nice thing for them. They don't want your backpacks, like the dirt on your backpack, to be getting on their floor, and they don't want you to have to put your backpack on their dirty floor. Their floor is not dirty, but the point is that they usually have these box baskets that you can stick your backpack in, or your purse, or whatever you have. And some places will enforce it. So like sometimes if you go in and you put your backpack on the floor, an employee will come up to you and hand you one. Some places like Starbucks and stuff like that won't, because they're just used to foreigner clientele that aren't used to that, but it's just something to know. And then going along with the not eating on the train thing, also people don't eat when they're walking. So no one goes to a convenience store and buys a bag of chips and walks down the street with the bag of chips and eats them. So a lot of convenience stores, you'll notice, have tables. And that is intended because there's a lot of food that you can get at the convenience store that's heated up. And so that is intended to, the intention is that you're going to sit down and eat it there. So especially if you heat up anything, you have the convenience store heat up anything, the hope is that you're going to either go home and eat it, you're going to go back to somewhere inside to eat it, but you're not going to eat it like walking on the street. You can, have juice or like a water or a coffee or something while walking, but eating is definitely, it just doesn't happen. And so that's just something to know. And then this is more for people that are living in Tokyo, but trash is a very, very intense thing in Japan. So the reason that they do it is because a lot of trash, at least in America where I'm from, gets like wasted. So a lot of stuff that's supposed to be recycled can't actually be recycled because it's not cleaned or it's not separated properly, and it becomes too difficult to separate it properly when it's everyone's. And so Japan has really created culture around separating everything so that it's really easy to utilize it most efficiently and be able to recycle it. And honestly, it just makes people far more aware of what they're consuming. It's made me far more aware of what I'm consuming. So if you are living in Japan, there are specific trash rules that you have to separate burnable trash from non-burnable trash. You have to separate cardboard and milk cartons and papers, and you have to wrap them up in a special string that you can get at like any dollar store or like Walmart-esque place in Japan. and then you throw them out at certain times. So if you are living in Japan, I would just go to your city hall, ask them for a little form that shows you when to put out trash. They probably will give it to you because they're so interested in you doing it correctly. But that will give you just like a calendar that tells you when you can put out certain things like bottles and stuff like that. And then just a couple like very specific to Japan cultural tips. There's two phrases that I think everyone should know when they come here. It just helps. I think it makes people very happy when you know these things. One is excuse me. Excuse me is a very, very, very important phrase in Japan. Japanese people use it all the time. People that live here use it all the time. It can be used if you're trying to get around someone, or if you accidentally bump into someone, or if you're just trying to get someone's attention. It's a super useful phrase to know, even for people that aren't very language inclined. I would recommend trying to memorize this because it's super useful. It is sumimasen, 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 sumimasen. The other one is something that at least a lot of Americans know already, or they know the informal way to say it, which is thank you. The informal way to say thank you is arigato. But if you are trying to be culturally sensitive and you want to say it the correct way, you would want to say it in the formal way. The formal way to say thank you to people that you don't know is arigato gozaimasu. Arigato gozaimasu. Arigato gozaimasu. Arigato gozaimasu. So arigato, no one's going to care if you just say arigato the informal way, but that is really what you're supposed to say to friends or people that you're quite close with. Arigato gozaimasu is a more formal and more respectful way to say thank you. And then the last thing that's super specific to Japan and is bowing. So it's not anything aggressive. You don't need to bow to the floor or like bow all the way down, but when you do say, thank you or excuse me, or you're acknowledging someone, just a little short bow is just a really respectful way to show someone that you respect them. So that's really important to know. And a lot of people will do that to you. All right, so that is going to wrap up this video on Japanese etiquette. Those are just a few of the things that I could think of off the top of my head after living here in Japan. Let me know in the comments if you know of any that I missed, or if you want any further explanation on any of the things that I touched on. I'm happy to go into further detail, make another video about this, maybe get some more footage on it to give a little bit more context. Again, if you like content on Japan, if you like content on East Asia generally, or languages, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure to hit the notification bell. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I know it's like a super annoying thing to say, but it really does help. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let's just keep being empathetic. Let's keep wandering. Let's keep spreading positivity. I can't wait to see you in the next one, and I hope you have a great day. Bye. All right, so the first one is just going to be good morning. It's an easy one. It's a good place to start when we're talking about morning conversation. Good morning in Spanish is buenos días. Buenos días. Buenos días.